All right, today we're diving into the story of an absolute diplomatic powerhouse, someone who really changed the course of history.
So how exactly did one woman, armed with this brilliant strategy, go head-to-head with a global superpower at the negotiating table? Well, in this explainer, we're going to deconstruct the incredible story of Madame Nguyễn Thị Bình and really unpack her masterclass in diplomacy during the Vietnam War.
Okay, so first things first. Let's get to know the protagonist of our story here, the absolutely formidable woman who found herself right at the center of world diplomacy.
You know, she was born into this incredible legacy of patriotism, but her path was really forged in struggle. I mean, her early life as an activist and even as a political prisoner under the French colonial government, that didn't break her, no way. It actually built her into this incredibly resilient leader who was about to take the world stage.
And that brings us to the high-stakes arena where she would truly make her mark, the Paris peace talks. So, you have to picture this. For 5 long years, from 68 to 73, Paris was literally the epicenter of this intense diplomatic battle. I mean, these weren't just some quiet talks. This was a fight for the very future of a nation, and you better believe the entire world was watching. And right at the heart of it all, Madame Bình. As the foreign minister for the Provisional Revolutionary Government of South Vietnam, she was, in so many ways, on her own. Think about it. She was the only woman leading a delegation at that main table, facing off against some of the most powerful and experienced negotiators on the planet. So the big question is, how did she do it? How did she not just hold her own, but actually succeed? Well, it all came down to this brilliant, multifaceted strategy, which we can really break down into 3 key parts. Basically, her approach was like a coordinated assault on 3 fronts. She realized that she couldn't just win by negotiating behind closed doors. No, she also had to take the fight to the court of public opinion and to the press. It was a totally comprehensive campaign.
Okay, part 1. She masterfully used public peace proposals to completely seize control of the narrative. The key here is she wasn't just reacting to what others were doing. She was setting the agenda.
And this is what's so fascinating. It reveals this kind of dual-track nature of the negotiations. You know, everyone talks about Henry Kissinger and his famous secret back-channel meetings. But Madame Bình, she operated right out in the open. She used these big public proposals to put relentless pressure on Washington, all by winning over hearts and minds. And look, it wasn't just a one-off thing. She created this constant, like a drumbeat for peace. First, the 10-point solution, then the 8-point clarification, and then the famous 7-point proposal. See the pattern? Each one built on the last, and the effect was that it kept the US constantly on the defensive. It perfectly framed her side as the one that was proactively trying to make peace happen. So that public pressure was the air game, right? But it was backed up by an absolute iron will on the ground, inside the negotiating room. On the core issues, she was totally unyielding, and that led to some pretty direct confrontations over her key demands.
I mean, it's right there in the historical record. U.S. records themselves repeatedly, and I mean repeatedly, refer to Madame Binh's 6-month withdrawal demand. This shows that her proposal wasn't just some talking point. It became the central issue, the thing that basically defined the entire negotiation.
And this is where the standoff really happened. On one side, she's demanding a firm 6-month timetable for U.S. troops to withdraw and, this is crucial, tying it directly to the release of all prisoners of war. On the other side, the U.S. is countering with a much longer, kind of vague, shifting timeline. This whole thing became this incredibly high-stakes chess match right at the heart of the talks.
And that brings us to the 3rd part of her strategy. And honestly, this might have been the most brilliant move of all. She took her case beyond the negotiating table and went directly to the people.
She just got it. She understood that this war would be won or lost, not just on the battlefield, but in the minds of the public, especially the public in the US and France. And she was a master at this. Being fluent in French, she gave these commanding speeches, she held relentless press conferences, and her image, this calm, poised, unyielding presence, it became a really powerful symbol for her cause.
So what was the result of this total masterclass in negotiation? Well, an incredible and lasting legacy.
You see, she didn't just use a strategy, she completely personified it. She became the living, breathing embodiment of this idea of public programmatic negotiation, blending what was happening on the battlefield with these carefully staged proposals and a whole lot of media savvy to get what she wanted. And if you want to boil down her historic achievement to just one thing, it comes down to a single number: 1.
Because when the Paris Peace Accords were finally signed on January 27, 1973, she was the only woman to put her name on that document. A truly singular, powerful moment immortalized in history.
But you know what? Her work didn't just stop in Paris. Not at all. She went on to serve her country for decades as Minister of Education and later as Vice President. This is what cemented her status as a true national hero. And incredibly, even today, at the age of 98, she is still a celebrated icon in Vietnam.
So when you look at the whole picture, her story isn't just history, right? It's a timeless lesson in negotiation. And it really leaves us with a pretty big question. What can modern diplomacy learn from Madame Binh's playbook of principle, pressure, and public persuasion?